Hello. Hi, everyone. So excited to be here today, and especially talking about building bridges, innovation bridges between Africa and Europe. And I have amazing panelists here today to have this conversation with. So I'll tell you a quick story before we go on. Last in 20, I think that was 2022, a friend of mine, Nicole Ackerman, attended a conference in Nigeria and invited Steffi, right? Invited Steffi. Steffi came to Nigeria. She was blown away by Lagos. Oh my God. And then Steffi started telling everybody about Munich and about DLD. Come to DLD. Anybody Steffi sees, come to DLD. And we were sold. We were all sold. And hence, we decided to come to DLD last year. And we visited DLD as a delegation. And it was so impactful as we came through. Then we invited Steffi to come back to Nigeria. So Steffi came back to Nigeria in July. We had another event in November, and she brought a delegation of amazing people to Nigeria. And again, remember I'm going somewhere here, building bridges, right? And they came to Nigeria, and we decided we're just gonna keep strengthening these partnerships that we've started, and hence the reason why we're here. So I'm here again with even more people, wonderful, amazing entrepreneurs from Africa, and also government officials as well, here representing that bridge that we're trying to build. One of the key persons who came to Nigeria was Anna here. So my first question will go to Anna to talk about opportunities, tell us opportunities that you think exist, when it comes to building bridges and, talking about innovation between Africa and Europe. Using your experience in Nigeria.
I was also, each time I go to Nigeria, and particularly to Lagos, I'm also blown away. And actually, I happened to travel to Nigeria, to Lagos, together with the DLD team, but also with GIZ in November. And so we got the chance to visit lots of innovation hubs, NIT Hub, but also to talk to startups, particularly to fintech entrepreneurs, but also insurtechs. And one thing that I really thought, also being new in my role, I was just so blown away by the entrepreneurship and the innovation that I found. And I was thinking the whole time, what am I doing here? We should get all these people actually to Germany or Europe and sort of let us learn from them. And what I really took away is that Africa is really a continent of opportunities for so many reasons. So it has the largest young workforce, thinking talent pool. By 2030, I think we expect more than 375 young people in the workforce. And then it's a huge market. It has tons of users. It's close to our market. But I think what I really found the most striking is the entrepreneurship and the innovation culture, and just the whole leapfrogging that I'm still trying to understand how we can get that better actually to work in Europe, but also looking at companies like M-Pesa, Flutterwave. And then I also learned, when we talk about innovation on the African continent, it's not only business, it's also policy and regulation. And I was really astonished to see how advanced many countries are when it comes to startup policies, to AI, and so I pretty much went home and thought there's so many opportunities and so many bridges that exist already, but I think we all came back just thinking about there's so much more we can do.
That's amazing. Thank you for that. And thanks for mentioning policy, because we have someone who can speak to that here. And talking about the Nigerian digital transformation journey driven by AI and innovation. You are the Director General for the National Information Development Agency, and you speak to policy. Can you tell us a bit about that journey and how Nigeria has been able to show up in the African map, doing this and doing it right, and also touch on other African countries that are doing the same?
So thank you very much, Dr. Inya. You have set the stage. You invited Steffi. She came to Nigeria. She was inspired with what she has seen in Nigeria. And we created an initiative that we should work together to achieve something that led to connection between Nigeria and DLD community in general. So looking at that, when it comes to the inspiration, for me to build bridges, you need to do three things. You need to inspire, you need to create activities, and you need to connect. So when it comes to policy, government can also inspire you to come to Nigeria, to come to Africa, by developing enabling policies that can attract you to come to Nigeria. And in the spirit of progress and innovation, we started by developing the National Digital Economy Policy and Strategy in 2019. And building on top of that, this government, under the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Renewed Hope Agenda, we came up with a strategic blueprint for us to position ourselves as a leader in Africa when it comes to digital transformation. And digital transformation is a journey. To embark on a journey, you need to get all what you need to achieve that. So to do that, we started by looking at knowledge. For us to succeed in digital innovation, we need to invest more in knowledge, because knowledge is the foundation upon which countries build robust and sustainable economy. So under knowledge, we have three key initiatives. Firstly, digital literacy. We want every Nigerian to be able to have access to these digital services and technology. So we have set a target to achieve 95% digital literacy by 2030. Secondly, it's about talent. When you have the users, the people eager to use the devices, digital offerings, and technology, you also need to have people that will build that technologies. And we cannot rely on someone to come and build our national digital offerings. Therefore, we have to build our own capacity. We've started an initiative on 3 million tech talent. And thirdly, it's about research, because digital literacy and talent are the quick wins. But for the longer term, we need to invest in research so that we can be part or active shapers of the digital economy itself. Africa and Nigeria lost out during the first, second, and third industrial revolution. But for the fourth industrial revolution, we have no reason to be left behind, because it is about brain, it is about human capital, and we have both.
Wow. DG, what you're saying is that we're ready, right? Africa is ready. And Nigeria is ready.
Yes.
You've heard it from him. We're ready. So we're ready to have you there.
Yeah.
As Anna has said, as well as DG, there's so many talented people, in Africa and in Nigeria, and particularly a lot of people on the other side do not know. So I would speak to, for example, the European innovation stakeholders. What do you think we need to put in place for them to be aware, or make it easier for us to be able to connect through the bridges that we're trying to build?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it's really interesting. So Impact Hub is a global network of innovation spaces. There's over 110, and there's lots of Europe and lots of Africa. They're locally owned, so really bottom up. So there is that knowledge, and I think generally interest is not lacking. I think interest is there with innovation stakeholders, but often it's exactly these people who have, most pressed for time and budget. So, exchanging with a different ecosystem and not only being interested, but actually following up that interest with a journey or with actual collaboration, it needs time and budget. And I think that's what it comes down to. I think interest is there. What's often lacking is, I think, one, opportunity, and then two, kind of structures that enable that. And I think it speaks very much to what you said, is this kind of inspire, connect, and enable. I think we see with one visit of someone like you, Anna, that people get very inspired with a delegation like you guys over here, you will inspire so many people at DLD to know like what's happening. So inspiration, I think, is maybe not what's lacking. I think it's that next step. Like once you're inspired, like once someone here in the innovation ecosystem inspired, what are those opportunities? And I think as someone who is not on the policy side, but as an intermediary, as an innovation hub, often on the executing side, we often see that there is interest. There is maybe an opportunity here and there, but funding stuff like that is really, really tough because specifically early stage startups, founders, innovators, they don't have that time, that budget. So providing and building those infrastructures is really what it's about if we want to enable a more stable exchange and really building those bridges. It's that we need to do. So it's understanding what are the structures that are needed, building on existing structures, but then also really thinking about the incentives. Why would a founder, an innovator from Lagos, from Munich want to exchange, and then trying to build on that? So these incentive structures, I think, are also super, super relevant.
Fantastic. Structures and incentives. What sort of incentives would you need? It's a follow-up question now to have in place.
Yeah, I think two things. One, if you want to have bridges, you need bridgeheads. So we see again and again that, as hubs in these cities, we get asked to do a lot of this work, which is connecting ecosystems, but it's oftentimes, not thought about that that's not necessarily something that's actually a business model. It's hard to earn money with that. So it needs to come with a certain amount of funding to enable this kind of opportunities. And the second thing is, I think to also think about if large structures, policymakers think about providing funding in different ways, think about how can that be provided so it inspires, cross-geography collaboration. Think in the European Union, the Horizon 2020 system, where you need to have, a partnership between countries to even be able to apply. So I think these would be kind of structures you could learn from if you were to really look at, not only build a bridge, but actually make people walk that bridge and build and work together.
Fantastic. And I would ask you the same question as well, Anna. From your work or from your standpoint, what sort of incentive or structures do you think whether exist already or should exist to encourage the sustainability of the bridges that we're building?
Yeah, I think what you just mentioned, the collaboration part is really important between ecosystems on all levels. So if it's national, across borders, across continents, also different players, then also think about collaboration on a very holistic level, but also on a very specialized level, which proves to be more effective, I think, if you cluster people by topics, if you just like fintech or if you go into different areas. Also, I think that harmonization in terms of policies and regulation is important across borders again, and also matching innovators and investors in a much better way. And this is something I think you mentioned, or we saw a really nice example in Nigeria, how you're starting to do that. Then ideally, probably we would go across borders again and across continents. But I think if we have all these different measures in place, it should fit quite well. And then I think still we have the informal part that you mentioned. Again, bring people to Africa and just you see what's going on there. And I think then, and also formats like these now, today. And I can just really encourage everybody to go because you're blown away.
Thank you. And DG, I'll ask you the same question about structures. I know, NIDA, perhaps you have something in place already. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think for me it is very difficult to answer that question of what kind of incentives do you need in a clear and concise term, because I've asked these questions in many places but never got a clear answer. Why? Because it's not something we can learn from what happened somewhere. Every ecosystem is unique, every country is unique, and every situation is unique. So this is not something you can learn from maybe previous books or research because they never exist. It's something we want to co-create. For me, the answer is a participatory approach. Let us work together as an ecosystem to co-create it. That's why, as a government, we are reimagining ourselves and our place within the ecosystem. Before, government normally sit in the office, use armchair theory to come up with policies and regulation. That never work. But now we do a co-creation. We call everyone, all stakeholders, let's sit together. Let us think of what can work for us in our ecosystem, and let us pilot it. Because it's not just about even thinking, coming up with a paperwork. You need to pilot it to ensure it works. We have done something in collaboration with GIZ. We co-created the Nigerian Startup Act, which also was a participatory approach of creating a legal framework for the ecosystem. It is a framework because we need to do more policies and regulation from it. What it gives us is we have a council chaired by Mr. President and all regulators on that council, as well as the ecosystem players. So they can sit down and look at all what they need and come up with policy. You have the government, you have the private sector, and even the academia as part of that ecosystem to sit down and discuss the kind of policies they need in place so that government will come up with that policy. Then I hear about incentives, funding, and so on. For the incentives also, under that legal framework, we have so many incentives, like tax holidays, you have access to contracts, and many more. And also, we have the Nigerian Startup seed funding as well. Government will provide seed funding and also will bring other venture capitals, as well as encourage people to set up that kind of patient fund within the country. Like, we have people with money in Nigeria doing nothing. But if you look at 90% of VC funding comes from outside Nigeria. So we need to encourage the people within Nigeria also to provide local funds to even match the foreign funding coming. So these are what the government is doing, but for me, I know it's not enough. We need to work together to identify what we need and also maybe to do a pilot to test it if it really works for us so that we can build on top of that.
Fantastic. So I'm hearing in order for us to sustain what we've started, because we've started already, even by having this conversation with the right people, we've started already, we need to find the right path. You know, set our call to action and follow it through that way. And I hear NIDA has a lot to offer, same as GIZ, and with you as well in terms of partnerships. So I will go to call to action. I know that we've spoken about the, generally what we want to do, building bridges, but I'll go to you, Anna. How important is gender, focusing on gender equality when it comes to opportunities that are within the industry, for women, as opposed to what is not available? How important are women to this move that we're making?
And that's a good question. And that's one of the areas where we actually have a common interest and both common challenge, because both Europe and African continent are equally bad. So both in terms of the funding that flows into female-led startups, but also the number of female-led startups themselves. And there are numbers out there showing that if you would increase or really include all the female innovators that you have, just in sub-Saharan Africa, GDP would increase by 12%, and in the EU, we would see an increase by 9%. So I think that shows, apart from certainly the moral obligation, how important that is. And I think this is something that certainly at GIZ, we know that in the German government, we have the German feminist policy, but also we have the foreign or the feminist development policy. So we certainly always make sure that we have this gender lens on everything we do, but I think there's so much more we need to look at also in terms of policies and what can we really, from all angles, how can we support this? Because this is something I think where we really, at the very beginning, and there's a lot to do.
So are we putting your hands on certain things that you're supporting from here on, just for all of us to hear? We have the projects from GIZ that are already on there.
Plus I'm this feminist, anyway, so...
Okay, so DJ, I'll put you on the spot as well. What are you doing? Call to action, from here on, sustaining the bridges that we're building. Two things, just two things.
Okay, for me, the first one is we need to build on a mutual value creation. It's not something that Africa or Nigeria is coming to take something free from Europe. No. You might even benefit more because in Africa, looking at the technology in general and people as well, talent is the people component of the technology. You need people, you need talent to develop technology. And in Africa, we have that in abundance. We have an average age of 18, while in Europe, you have an average age of 42. We have 1.3 billion population. You have 740 something. That means Africa is almost double when it comes to the market. Your platform is as big as the number of users it has. So we can provide the users, we can provide the talent. So this, to sustain the bridges, is to build this kind of mutual relationship where everybody is going to be a win-win. You invest in Africa, we provide you with talent. And when you have the talent, your product, your business is as good as it is next product or services. And your next product is as good as the people who build it. The second one is to leverage on the existing relationship we have, like with GIZ. Already we are working together, building the ecosystem in Africa. Now what we need to do is to build the talent pipeline where we can supply you with the talent and we grow together.
And that's going to happen. Fantastic.
Absolutely.
All right. And with you, Leon, what do you want to see change when it comes to sustainability from your angle with innovation hubs? And what change are you also willing to be a part of as well? Because we're calling to action and we want to know what you want to see change and what you're ready to do.
Yeah. Thanks for the question. I think some of the things we already heard. I think one big thing is really not thinking up new, but building on existing structures. I think very often we want to reinvent the wheel, we want to come up with something new, but there is great structures that already exist, there is great relationships that are in place, and if we use those and we build on those, that's what really creates these bridgeheads that can work together. I think that's a big one. The second one is really when you create policy, you need execution. I'm more often on the execution side. So really for these two sides to work hand in hand, very closely, to have open conversations about what's really needed and what the problems are. I think that is something that really, really makes a difference, and it's often harder than it sounds. And last but not least, I think, again, like really thinking about how do you create these kind of policies and funding mechanisms? Do they incentivize what is intended? Do they incentivize cross-continent collaborations? Do they incentivize that there is female-led innovation happening? Does it incentivize what's politically wanted, and really having a critical eye on that? And I think that those are the three things that I would really put forward, and that's what can, from my point of view, make a difference.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And I'm calling everyone to join in this call to action that we're putting forward. If you find that whatever area of work that you're in, you're part of this process, please reach out. Let's hold ourselves accountable, right? Let's not come here every day and have these conversations and come back next year and have the same conversations again. Let us, put our conversations to action. You've heard policy, you've heard what GIZ is working on the innovation hubs as well. We're available to have those conversations and, push things forward. Let's be the change that we want to see. Thank you very much.